Episode Radio presents the Rondo Hatton Award-winning horror movie host Penny Dreadful with two more strange and mysterious old-time radio plays on Penny Dreadful's Radio Horror Classics.
Good evening, my dreary ones. I have two old-time radio chillers for you tonight. But first, I have to do something about that racket. Hey, you! Yes, you with the chisel in your hand. What are you doing? Really? Getting a tombstone ready for tonight? Well, could you stop for a while as we present from the radio show Suspense from May 31st, 1945, August Heat, starring the beautiful voice of Ronald Coleman. Oh, you can wait. What's that? You need my what? My birth date? Well, let's get to our show.
Now, the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California presents Suspense. Tonight, Roma Wines bring you the distinguished actor, Mr. Ronald Coleman, in one of the great suspense stories of our time, August Heat. And with August Heat, W.F. Harvey's matchless narrative of premonition and the brooding terror of twilight and the unseen, and with the performance of Ronald Coleman, Roma Wines hope indeed to keep you in suspense.
Peniston Road, Clapham, August the 20th, 1945. I have had what I believe to be the most remarkable day in my life. And while the events are still fresh in my mind, I wish to put them down on paper as clearly as possible. Let me say at the outset that my name is James Clarence Withencroft. You must remember that in order to have the full implication of my story. James Clarence Withencroft. I'm 40 years old, in perfect health, never having known a day's illness. By profession, I am an artist. Not a very successful one, but I earn enough money by my black and white work to satisfy my necessary wants. My only near relative, a sister, died 5 years ago, so that there is no one in particular to whom I address this manuscript. Only you, who might by chance read it someday. For, because of the peculiar circumstance about which you will soon hear, I have the strong premonition that I shall never live to tell anyone about it. I breakfasted this morning at 9 at the usual time. It was no different from any other morning. And after glancing through the morning paper, I lighted my pipe. And I proceeded to let my mind wander, in the hope that I might chance upon some subject for my pencil. The room, though door and window were open, was oppressively hot. And I had just made up my mind that the coolest and most comfortable place in the neighborhood would be the deep end of the public swimming bath, when I was suddenly shaken. A feeling swept over me such as I'd never experienced before. I attempted to rise to my feet, but somehow it seemed as though I had suddenly been fastened to my chair. My hand went out in an effort to brace myself. And then, before I knew what I was doing, my pencil was in my hand, and I began to draw. It was as though someone had taken my hand and was moving it across the paper, swiftly, in bold strokes. And then I seemed to take over. My hand, under its own power, began to draw. I soon forgot the oppressive heat. Everything was forgotten in this frantic feeling that the sketch must be finished as soon as possible. I had no idea how long I worked until I heard the clock of St. Jude's in the distance. It was 4 o'clock, and I had started just after breakfast. Now, for the first time since I'd begun, I actually seemed to see what I had been sketching. I was surprised. The final result was, I felt sure, the best thing I'd ever done. It showed a criminal in the dock immediately after the judge had pronounced sentence. The man was fat, enormously fat. The flesh hung in rolls about his chin. It creased his huge, stumpy neck. He was clean-shaven, or perhaps I should say a few days before he must have been clean-shaven. And he was almost bald. He stood there before the judge, his short, clumsy fingers clasping the rail, looking straight in front of him. The feeling that his expression conveyed was not so much one of horror as of utter, absolute collapse. There seemed nothing in the man strong enough to sustain that mountain of flesh. And then I saw that the sketch wasn't complete, for the man's other hand seemed to be clutching an instrument of some kind, a weapon, but it hadn't been completed. I had made this sketch, and yet I had no recollection of what I'd intended the man to carry in his other hand. I took up my pencil again, and I attempted to fill in the fuzzy outline, but it was useless. It was as though my fingers had suddenly turned to lead. I sat down, and I felt the moisture slowly forming on my forehead. And once again, I was conscious of the oppressive heat. Then I knew that there would be no finishing of the sketch, at any rate not for the moment. So I rolled it up, and without quite knowing why, I put it in my pocket. In spite of my peculiar inspiration, I was filled with a rare sense of happiness which the knowledge of a good thing well done gives. I believe that I set out with the idea of calling upon Trenton, for I remember walking along Lytton Street and turning to the right along Gilchrist Road, at the bottom of the hill where the men are at work on the new tram line. From there onwards, I have only the vaguest recollection of where I went. Through parks, along crowded streets, always conscious of the awful heat that came up from the dusty asphalt pavement in a suffocating wave. I remember, too, the hollow sound of my footsteps as I moved along. Although walking aimlessly, I somehow knew that there was a goal, a something to which I was drawn. I longed for the thunder promised by the great banks of copper-colored clouds that hung low over the western sky. I've really no idea how far I walked when a small boy roused me from my abstraction.
You got the time, mister?
20 minutes to 7.
Thanks. Hot enough for you, sir?
Yes. When he left me, I began to take stock of my bearings. I found myself standing before a gate that led into a yard bordered by a strip of thirsty earth. There were flowers, purple stock and scarlet geranium, and great numbers of bees droned over them. I stood looking down at them for a moment, and then, for some reason, I looked up. Over the entrance to the place, there was a board with the inscription, Charles Atkinson, monumental mason, worker in English and Italian marbles. From the yard itself came a cheery whistle, the noise of hammer blows and the cold sound of steel meeting stone. A sudden impulse made me enter, and I went in the direction of the noise. There was a man, sitting with his back towards me. He was busy at work on a slab of curiously veined marble. Then, without turning, his hammer stopped in midair, as he was about to bring it down on his chisel. He held this position a moment before turning, but I knew that he was aware of my presence, and when he turned, I saw his face. It was, although I'd never seen him before, it was the face of the man I had been drawing. Yes, it was the face of the man whose sketch was in my pocket. He sat there on his low stool, huge and elephantine, the sweat pouring from his scalp, not speaking. Then he took a red silk handkerchief and he mopped his brow. Although this face that looked up at me was the same as my sketch, the expression was absolutely different. Suddenly the puzzled expression left his face, and he smiled, as if we were old friends. And he walked over and he took my hand.
Good day, sir.
Good day. I'm sorry to intrude.
Not at all.
Everything is so hot and glary outside. This is like an oasis in the wilderness.
I don't know about an oasis, but it certainly is hot. Whew. Take a seat, sir.
He pointed to the end of the gravestone on which he was at work, and I sat down.
Whew. Very hot.
That's a beautiful piece of stone you've got hold of.
In a way it is. The surface here is as fine as anything you could wish, but there's a big flaw at the back. Oh, I don't expect you'd notice it.
Oh, I shouldn't think so.
I could never really do a good job on a bit of marble like that. It would be all right in the summer like this. Wouldn't mind the blasted heat. But wait until the winter comes.
Winter?
There's nothing quite like frost to find out the weak points in stone.
Oh.
A gravestone, you see.
Oh, I see. Then what's this one for?
You'd hardly believe if I was to tell you, but it's for exhibition. It's the truth. Artists have exhibitions, so do grocers and butchers. Oh, we have them too. All the latest little things in headstones, you know.
He went on to talk of marbles, which sort of marble best withstood wind and rain, and which were easiest to work. Then of his garden and some new sort of carnation he had bought. At the end of every other minute, he would drop his tools, wipe his shining head.
This heat's bad. A man's not responsible for what he does. This heat.
I said little, for I felt uneasy. There was something unnatural, uncanny in all of this, the feeling that I'd experienced it all before. The oppressive heat, the fragrance of the stocks in the air, the conversation about the marble, the flowers, everything as though I had experienced it before. And yet I knew that I'd never ever been in this section of town before. I tried to persuade myself that at least I'd seen him before, that his face, unknown to me, had found a place in some out-of-the-way corner of my memory. But I knew that I was practicing little more than a plausible piece of self-deception. As I sat there quietly, watching him, he looked up at me and he said,
There. What do you think of that?
He said it with an air of evident pride, of a job well done. I could sense that he was experiencing the same feeling I had experienced when I'd finished my sketch. Then he got up with a sigh of relief.
Hot, ain't it?
I was seated in such a position that I was unable to see his work. And for some reason, I didn't move. Suddenly, he began to read what he'd carved on the tombstone. He spoke deliberately and with a flat voice.
In the midst of life, we are in death. Born January 18, 1905.
I looked up at the start. This man had read my exact birthday.
He passed away very suddenly on August 20th, 1945.
That's today.
We usually use the present date on these exhibition stones.
Do you usually put a name on them, too?
Yes. Sacred to the memory of James Clarence Withencroft.
Looking to advance your career, learn a new skill, or just explore a new interest? Massasoit's Community Education Department has you covered. Our non-credit courses are flexible and offered at various times to fit your busy schedule. Courses often include English courses, high school equivalency preparation, interpreting for healthcare and legal, allied health courses, and much more. Join our diverse community of learners and start your journey today. Visit massasoit.edu/communityed.
Cold shudder swept over me, and I sat there in silence. The sound of birds and crickets seemed loud in my ears as we stood there, looking at each other, saying nothing. And then he mopped his brow again.
Hot.
I was finally able to speak. Where did you see that name?
Oh, I didn't see it anywhere. I wanted some name, and I put down the first that came into my head.
It's a strange coincidence, but it happens to be mine.
Huh? That's your name? You're James Clarence...
Withencroft, yes.
Well... And the dates?
I can only answer for the birth date. It's correct.
Oh. That's a rum go.
I made a sketch this morning of you.
Of me? But you've never seen me before.
No.
Oh.
I took my sketch from my pocket and I showed it to him. As he looked, the expression on his face altered, until it became more and more like that of the man I had drawn.
And it was only the other day before that I told Mariah there were no such things as ghosts.
Neither of us had seen a ghost, but I knew what he meant. Then I spoke to him. You probably heard my name someplace.
Yes. You must have seen me somewhere and forgotten it.
Yes.
Were you at Clacton-on-Sea last July?
No, I've never been to Clacton in my life.
Oh.
Then we were silent for some time again, and we stood there looking at one another, and at the two dates on the gravestone, and the birth one was right, and the other was today.
Well, come inside and have some supper.
His wife was a strange little woman who was pallid with the look of those who live their lives indoors. Her husband introduced me as a friend of his who was an artist, and he informed her that I was staying to supper. I spoke, making some comment that I hoped I wouldn't be an intrusion, and she looked up at me and she said,
"You have a pleasing voice, Mr. Withencroft, and you're welcome in my home. I'm sorry Charles has not brought you here before."
Very little was said during the meal, and after the sardines and watercress had been removed, she walked over to a cupboard, and she took down a thin black book, and as she handed it to me, she spoke.
Would you read aloud, Mr. Withenscroft?
Puzzled, I looked down at the book which she'd opened and placed before me. It was a very tiny book. The Prophet, it was called, by an author unknown to me with a strange Eastern name, Khalil Gibran. And my eyes fell across the page, and suddenly I was reading aloud, as she'd asked me to. Then Almitra spoke, saying, we would ask now of death. And he said, you would know the secret of death. But how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? The owl, whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day, cannot unveil the mystery of light. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. In the depth of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. Your fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king whose hand is to be laid upon him in honor. Is the shepherd not joyful beneath his trembling, that he shall wear the mark of the king? Yet is he not more mindful of his trembling. For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountain top, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. When I looked up, Mr. Atkinson had gone. But his wife stood before me, and as she took the book, she spoke.
Thank you.
Then I went outside. And I found Atkinson sitting on the gravestone and smoking. He looked up at me.
Hot. Man's not responsible for what he might do in this heat. She never asked anyone to read aloud before.
And then we talked about the sketch again. He looked at it.
Likeness is me, all right. On trial.
You must excuse my asking, but do you know of anything you've done for which you could be put on trial?
No, I've done nothing. Not yet.
He got up, fetched a can from the porch, and he began to water the flowers.
Twice a day regular in the hot weather. And then the heat sometimes gets the better of the delicate ones, and ferns. Good Lord, they could never stand it. Where do you live?
I told him my address. It would take an hour's quick walk to get back home. And he stopped watering, and he faced me squarely.
It's like this. We'll look at the matter straight. If you both go back home tonight, you take your chance of accidents. A cart may run over you. There's always banana skins and orange peels, to say nothing of falling ladders.
He spoke of the improbable with an intense seriousness that would have been laughable 6 hours before. But I did not laugh.
The best thing we can do is for you to stay here till 12 o'clock. Then it'll be tomorrow, do you see?
Yes.
We'll go upstairs and smoke. Maybe cooler inside.
And to my surprise, I agreed. sitting in a long, low room beneath the eaves. Atkinson has sent his wife to bed. He himself is busy sharpening some tools at a little oilstone, smoking one of my cigars the while. And as I look at my sketch before me, I suddenly see the fuzzy outline of what the man in the picture holds in his hands. But while I had not been able to sketch it before, I am able to do so now. It is a chisel, and it is stained with dark liquid. The sketch is completed now. The air seems charged with thunder, and I hear it in the distance. It is ominous, but it carries the hope of rain. Perhaps this damnable heat will be broken soon, and the day will soon be over. It is close to 12. I am writing this at a shaky table before the open window. The leg is cracked, and Atkinson, who seems a handy man with his tools, is going to mend it as soon as he has finished putting an edge on his chisel. There. It is 12. The day is over, and I shall be going home. But the heat is stifling. This heat is enough to send a man mad.
And so closes August Heat, in which Roma Wines have brought you Ronald Coleman as star of tonight's study in Suspense. Suspense is produced, edited, and directed by William Spear. Music for August Heat was composed by Lucien Morawick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. Dennis Hoy appeared as Atkinson. Suspense.
Well, I bet you didn't see that coming. Oh, drat, he's at it again. Could you please stop for a while? What? You're almost finished. All you need to do is put in the name. Okay, what do you mean, do I spell penny with or without the second E? Anyway, our next play comes from the Inner Sanctum series. You know, the show with the creaking door? Well, tonight's show stars the all-time king of horror pictures, the one and only Boris Karloff, in Birdsong for a Murderer from June 22nd, 1952. Shall we begin?
Good evening, friends of the creaking door. This is your host to welcome you into the Inner Sanctum once again. Come in. Our little place may not be a mansion, but it has its advantages. For one thing, it's thoroughly scare condition. The scream pipes are always in good working order, and the rent's quite reasonable. We get a cut rate. had your warning. Whatever happens from now on, you asked for. Just be sure the family is provided for. And now to our happy little anecdote for tonight. Birdsong for a murderer.
My name is Carl Warner. I'm not a young man any longer, but I don't mind that. I wasn't very happy when I was young. Now, well, at least I'm not unhappy. And late at night, after Elaine has gone upstairs to bed, she's my wife, and she's very pretty and younger than I am, and perhaps I made a mistake in marrying her, but, well, anyway, late at night, I go into the room where I keep the birds, and listening to them sing, I get as close to happiness as I can expect. I stay an hour, and then I cover their cages. And then they know it's time to sleep. And they sleep. Even on the stormiest of nights. And this was a stormy night. Someone knocked at the front door. It was late. We know very few people. We kept to ourselves, mostly Elaine and I, so... I was worried a little when I opened the door.
Mind if I come in, Mr. Warner? It's kind of damp out.
No, of course not. You seem to know me.
I do, don't I?
But I don't know you.
My name is Brule. Chester Brule.
Chester Brule. I still don't know.
Remember? That doesn't matter.
What did you want?
Nice place you got here. Much nicer than Cragmount.
Cragmount?
Cragmount Asylum for the insane.
You work there?
I used to work there.
This is all very interesting.
Funny thing happened just before I left. One of the inmates, this baby, was a homicidal maniac.
Homicidal?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't see what all this has to do with me.
I understand. There was one funny thing about this inmate.
Was there?
Loved canaries. Loved to listen to him sing. Psychiatrists at Cragmount found it very interesting. Birdsong was the only thing that kept the murderous impulses down. Mr. Warner, I'm out of work.
That's too bad.
You're not doing badly. Nice house, furnishings. Didn't I hear canaries singing before I come into the house?
Maybe you did.
So, 5,000 in the morning?
No.
I think yes. Otherwise, Cragmount will be happy to hear from me. 11 Crescent Place. Room 2B in the morning. Sure now.
Of course.
Good night, Mr. Warner. Till we meet again.
I watched him go out into the blackness, and the blackness swallow him. The birds were quiet. I thought for a moment of taking the covers off the cages and letting the birds sing, and then I thought that tonight it might be better if I didn't let the birds sing.
Couldn't wait till morning, huh? I didn't expect it. Wait, that knife. No! I shouldn't have let it. Surprise!
slept more than 2 or 3 hours. Fortunately, Elaine and I had separate rooms. And at breakfast the next morning, she was fresh and young and beautiful.
Carl?
Huh?
Why are you staring at me in that funny way?
Nothing. You really shouldn't read at meals.
Oh, it's only the paper. So many exciting things happen. I can't wait till I get to them.
Still...
Oh, isn't that terrible?
What is?
A man was murdered last night. Not very far from here. Crescent Place.
Crescent Place.
Such an odd name. Chester Brule. Carl, your coffee cup.
Sorry, I wish you wouldn't read the paper.
It says that his canary, he had a canary car, was singing when the landlady found the body. Oh, that's pathetic.
Elaine, I told you not to read that paper.
But, darling... Oh, that's pathetic. You're tearing the paper up. What's the matter?
I'm nervous this morning.
Don't remember you ever having been like this before.
I told you I was nervous.
Now, look, darling, why don't you go into the aviary? Listen to the birds for a while. You love them so, and they have such a nice effect on you.
I went into the aviary as she suggested, and I listened to the birds. But it was quite a little while before I stopped trembling.
Carl?
Yes, dear?
Come into the kitchen.
All right.
I've been washing the breakfast dishes, darling, and found this among them.
Carving knife.
This isn't that funny. Besides, look at it. The blade's all covered with brown stain.
I see.
Sure, I washed it after dinner last night. Did you use it for anything?
No, darling. Now, give it to me and I'll wash it now.
Oh, I can do it. I just wondered. Oh, the door. Will you...
No, you give me the knife. And you answer the door. I said you answer the door.
All right. There's nothing to shout about. I don't know what's the matter with you this morning.
I washed the knife. Quickly, but carefully. Very quickly, but very carefully. Didn't take long. The stains hadn't hardened much. The brown stain.
Carl?
Yes?
Someone to see you. A man.
What does he want?
He didn't say, except that it was in... He said he's a lieutenant. A Lieutenant Gregg. From the police.
There are 17 steps between the kitchen and our living room. I know because I counted them while I was walking to see Lieutenant Gregg of the police. 17 steps to make my face polite, relaxed, smiling. But would I be able to hide the trembling of my hands? You're Lieutenant Gregg. My wife said you wanted to see me.
Yes, that's right. Mr. Warner, did a man named Chester Brule.
Chester Brule? Why, I can't say offhand. I've got such a bad memory for names. I may or I may not. Why?
He's murdered last night. You see, we found your name and address in Brule's address book.
I see.
We thought you might be able to help us.
Well, the fact that my name is in his address book doesn't mean...
Prove anything? Well, of course not. Would the fact that Brule used to be an attendant in an insane asylum mean anything to you?
Why should it mean anything to me?
Well, I didn't say it should, Mr. Warner. I just thought...
Well, it doesn't.
Oh, guess that's that. You know, funny thing. There was a bird cage in Brule's room with a canary in it, singing its head off.
Huh? Well, lots of people are fond of canaries.
Sure. What was funny about it is that Brule's landlady swears Brule never had a bird.
That is funny.
Why, it looks, the killer knifed Brule and then left the cage and the bird in it behind him. Doesn't make any sense. Unless you figure that the guy who killed Brule was insane.
The birds have been quiet, but the slam of the door maybe started them off. And I knew that somehow I would have to get the cage and the bird in it out of Brule's room. I didn't know how I'd do it, but I'd do it. No matter how. how insane it was. It was dark when I got to Crescent Place. Dark on a lonely street. There was no one in front of the house. Nothing to show that a man had died inside the night before with a knife in his throat. The door was open. There was a dim light in the vestibule, leaving the stairs beyond in darkness. I went up them to the second floor. There's no one in the corridor. The door of 2B opened, and I went in. There was no light. The moon cast a pale glimmer over the room, and someone in a chair near the window. For a moment I thought it was Brule, but there was no blood. And then I realized it was a policeman in uniform, asleep. The cage was near the sleeping man. Would his sleep be sound enough? I reached out, lifted the cage, reached the door, and closed it. I was safe.
Carl?
Yes?
Oh, I'm so glad you're home. That Lieutenant Gregg is here again.
Gregg? Where?
In the bird room.
Why did you take him to the bird room?
He asked me to.
All right. Oh, Lieutenant Gregg?
Oh, hello, Mr. Warner. Quite a collection of canaries you've got here.
Yes, I have.
Were you home all last night?
Of course. This is still about Chester Brule's murder?
Uh-huh. Say, remember my mentioning I thought that the man who'd killed Brule and left the bird cage behind him must be insane?
Well, you did say something of the sort.
Yeah. And then there's the fact that Brule used to work with insane people. Huh?
Little about police work.
I hope I'm not boring you. Anyway, it occurs to me maybe I'd better take a trip up to Cragmount.
I suppose going to asylums or any place else a job.
Oh, sure. Did I mention Cragmount was an asylum?
Why, you must have.
Yeah. Well, I'll run up there, and I wouldn't be surprised if I get all the answers. What do you think?
I think I'm going to. What is it, Elaine?
Well, it's so late, I thought.
Oh, I can take a hint, Mrs. Warner. Don't bother showing me to the door.
He seems like a very nice man. Carl, stop it.
What?
That stare. If I didn't know you so well, I'd say you were going mad.
Go to bed, Elaine.
All right, darling. Oh, Carl, look.
Look at what?
Through the window, the garden. Lieutenant Gregg didn't go away. He's down there.
Get away from that window. Go to bed.
I'm going. But he looks as if he's waiting down there for something. For what, Carl?
I knew what he was waiting for. I knew I mustn't go to sleep. Things happen when you sleep. Terrible things. But I hadn't slept well the night before. Not well at all. And there'd been the strain of the day. And it was night now, and dark, still, terribly still.
If your goal is to be a restaurateur, executive chef, or major events planner, then you need to enroll in Massasoit College's Culinary Arts and Hospitality programs. Our Culinary and Hospitality Pathway provides students with hands-on training in food design and preparation, as well as marketing, tourism, and event planning. The program emphasizes the latest technical and creative skills and features a culinary lab and full-service kitchen. For more information, visit massasoit.edu.
Gargan? Gargan? Yeah. Oh. I was right. Was right, only it wasn't Gargan. Oh.
Such a lovely morning, Carl.
Lovely.
I looked for Lieutenant Gregg as soon as I got up. He wasn't in the garden anymore.
You must have got tired. Gone home. Or back to headquarters. Wherever policemen go.
Oh, dear. That's the Swenson's dog. He's got into our garden again. I'll have to get him out.
Elaine, don't.
Darling, you dig up all the flowers looking for bones.
Elaine. Maybe he won't be there. Elaine! Where are you?
Under the tree.
What?
Look. Lieutenant Gregg. His throat.
Come inside.
Oh, all right.
The kitchen.
Carl, where are you going?
The kitchen.
What are you doing?
The drawer. Silverware. Yes. It's here.
The carving knife.
That's right.
Carl, I thought you washed it last night. I guess you didn't.
You'd be wrong. I did wash it last night.
But the stains are still there. The brown stains.
These are fresh ones, Elaine. Get out of my way.
But...
I've got to go to the bird room.
Carl, please don't go away from me. Carl!
I was holding the carving knife in my hand. Started to put it down, and then I held on to it anyway. It would make taking the covers off the cages awkward, but I held on to it anyway. The birds were still. They remained still, unless I took the covers off. Elaine.
Carl, you must tell me what's wrong.
Don't come any closer.
But...
Elaine, please, not any closer.
You've got that knife in your hand.
Yes.
The one with the brown stain. Oh, Carl.
Don't say anything.
Carl, the night before last.
Elaine, don't ask questions. Ask questions, that's dangerous.
You were out of the house last night when Lieutenant Gregg was
I was
killed.
asleep.
You have the knife, Carl.
Yes.
Give it to me.
No.
Please, Carl.
No, stop.
All right. You may keep the knife. Because...
A revolver?
Yes. Lieutenant Gregg's revolver.
Elaine, give that to me.
Oh, no. I took it from Lieutenant Gregg last night. After he stopped crying. They always cry when you...
Elaine.
Didn't like it the way you've been looking at me, Carl. You were thinking that maybe you'd have to send me back to Craigmouth.
I wasn't.
You were, Carl. I know you were. After Chester Brew died.
Elaine.
Stop where you are.
All right, but...
Keep your hands away from the bird cage. Don't pull off the covers. Oh, Carl, I've hurt you.
Never mind.
But I didn't want to. Are you going to cry? Like the others?
It was my fault. Loved you too well. I really killed those others. Not you, my darling.
That's a fair thing to say. And I'll become quite angry. I am quite quite angry. Carl, you're silly. You pulled the covers off the cage. Carl? Carl, I'm speaking to you. Those birds, I don't like them. Carl? Oh, poor Carl. He's dead. I loved him, and now he's dead. But anyway, he didn't cry. He didn't cry.
Well, there it is. And so the story of a couple of lovebirds who, instead of billing and cooing, went in for killing and shooting. Of course, it was all little Elaine's idea. All Carl did was cover up. Well, friends, it's time once again to close that creaking door. Until next week at the same time, when we'll be back with a little hunk of horror. You'll be sure to listen, won't you? Until next week, then. Good night. Pleasant dreams.
Well, that was a lot of fun, kiddies, wasn't it? Wait, I don't hear that noise anymore. Hello? Oh, goodness. It looks like the tombstone tumbled over and flattened him. That curse really worked. I guess the old girl has still got it, eh? Until next time, my dreary one, as our host said, pleasant dreams.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Massasoit Radio presents...
For everybody who's sort of listening to the radio right now.
Sam's Live Vault.
I want to say hello to everybody on the radio.
Sam's Live Vault. 5 decades of great live music broadcasts. 9 p.m. Fridays.
This is New England's excellent horror hostess, Penny Dreadful, with an incantation for you. Want to shudder and tremble with fright? Tune in at 9 p.m. on Thursday night. Penny Dreadful presents Radio Horror Classics. Dare to hear the golden age of fear. Thursdays at 9 p.m. on WBMS.
Penny Dreadful's Radio Horror Classics is produced by Ron Creepy Cabucio. Be sure to tune in next week for more Penny Dreadful's Radio Horror Classics.